Welcome back, Spurs fans, to Casa De Spurs in the Bubble. I'm your host, Trace Ronning, joined as usual. I can't say always because we did miss you once, but by Stephen Hale. Stephen, 2-1 since the last show. How are you feeling about the odds?
I think the Spurs are going to the ship, man. This is a good sign of things to come. And of course, by ship, I certainly mean the 9th seed, which they're going to hopefully get a chance to knock off the Grizzlies by beating them twice. And then their reward will get to play the LeBron James-led Los Angeles Lakers and hopefully get swept in the very first round. So it should be a hoot and a half.
Yeah, so last time we talked, Spurs were 2-0 in the bubble. Things were looking rosy. Everybody they needed to lose was losing, and of course they were winning, so things were looking great. Since then, they've lost a couple games that they could have won. The Suns are actually ahead of them in the standings as of this recording, which is bizarre. But let's talk about the things that San Antonio could have controlled, starting with that loss to the 76ers, which, I mean,
that one hurt.
It was very clear to me that the Spurs were missing some big bodies in that one. I mean, Joel Embiid just kind of did whatever he wanted, and as much as they could take away Ben Simmons, great, but you cannot just let Joel Embiid feast on you like that. But what was the biggest takeaway from that game for you, Steven?
Yeah, it was that. It was I love this new Spurs small ball lineup, but every now and then you're going to run into, Jokic or Embiid or which is what they got like in back-to-back games. But I want to put that into a little bit of perspective for you. So the Spurs in their small ball lineup against arguably two of the best big men, like the best traditional centers in the league, they lost by a combined 8 points in two of those games. So yes, there is that one stings. I think the one with the Spurs is like you felt like they were so much closer with the Sixers, you felt like they were so much closer. They were right there. And they really dug themselves out of a hole and came back, with a legitimate chance to win the game. I still think DeMar DeRozan should have shot that ball. He was right there. He was open, but he gave a little pass to Jakob, who had been eating skim milk and drinking skim milk, and so he went up and lost it. But for the most part, they were good. I think that was really my big takeaway, though, is seeing DeMar kind of dominate in these fourth quarters, especially in their last two wins, too, against the Pelicans and against the Jazz. It's been the DeMar show. I think, what did you say, MVP of the bubble? I mean, he's looking good right now, man.
He's MVP of the bubble for the Spurs MVP. I was really impressed with Keldon Johnson in that Sixers game as well, though. He's been a spark plug.
Nice.
Super fun to watch. I mean, in that game especially, he really kind of outshined Lonnie Walker, who, like everyone's been waiting for Lonnie Walker. And, we've talked about his ups and downs, and there's been great. There's been really bad. Keldon Johnson hasn't had a bad showing yet, I don't think.
No.
Keldon Johnson would be what everybody's hoping Lonnie Walker would be out of the box, right? Like just hard springing, jumping around, crashing boards, throwing his body all over the place.
Yeah, he really is. I think that's a good point to bring up is poor Lonnie Walker, right? The guy has more athleticism in his, little finger than I have in my whole body. And yet we have labeled this guy to be something that he really quite isn't. What we've seen, the good that we've seen from Lonnie Walker, he's a great facilitator. He's got some good court vision. He's good in the open court. He's a good passer. But what we've seen from Keldon is this motor, this athleticism, this tenacity that I think a lot of people were expecting Lonnie Walker to have. And I think in retrospect, it's nice to have two very different players in this regard. A lot of the criticism that Bryn Forbes and Patty Mills have both taken is that, like, they're both the same player. One's just a little bit older. I'm actually thankful that Lonnie Walker has kind of transitioned to be something different, where, like you said, Keldon just has a fearlessness about him. He's got a toughness to him. He's guarding some guys that are a little thicker than Lonnie Walker would guard, and he's holding his own. And I think that's what we like about him.
Yeah.
I don't know what his player comparison is. I haven't quite figured that out. I think it's Russell Westbrook, but I'm getting hammered for that. But he's going to be really interesting, and he's been really fun to watch.
He especially showed out he took it a step further. He had a great Sixers game. He had a great game against the Nuggets as well. Yep. Unfortunately, of course, they fell short in that one too. And I missed the beginning of the game. I actually didn't even realize that the Nuggets were without like 3 of their starters.
Yeah.
And so when I joined, and I was like, oh, cool, like Spurs are keeping it close with the Nuggets. That's awesome. They're they're a contender for the second seed in the West again. And then I realized, oh, they're missing 3 of their best players, and we're hanging on for dear life. I mean, that's not necessarily like bad, because I think if this game had been played in February, the Spurs would have been down by like 30 points the entire time. So there were some positive things to see about that. Of course, like the main positive is just seeing DeJounte and Lonnie and Derrick White get heavy minutes together. Right. DeMar DeRozan just kind of played another facilitating role in that game. But that game, like the Sixers game, I felt like deep in my bones that they were going to win that game in the fourth. The game against the Nuggets, I know it was a little bit back and forth there in that fourth quarter, third quarter. But the feeling that I had was that if the Spurs didn't go on like a crazy run, they were never going to be able to pull away. And they didn't. And then Denver did what better teams do in like almost every game, and that eventually is they wear you down and win it.
Right. Well, the other thing to remember too is like the Spurs are really not. I mean, they're not playing for a title, right? So what they're really trying to do right now is figure out what their roster looks like. They're trying to figure out what parts they have. And I think you have guys that are potentially playing for a future contract. Like, I mean, Marco Bellinelli, Rudy Gay, these guys are playing for some sense of credibility. And in complete fairness, they've played much better in the bubble than they've played outside of the season, especially Rudy Gay. He's hit some big shots. But the Spurs are trying to figure out, what do we do with these 4 core guys? Lonnie, DeJounte, Derrick, and Keldon. What do we do with Jakob Poeltl, who's coming up as a restricted free agent? And what do we do with DeMar? What do we do with DeMar DeRozan, who's got a player option? I think what I understand is this guy's probably going to opt in. But they're trying to figure out what this roster actually looks like moving forward. And then you can kind of take the remaining pieces that might be out, the Trey Lyles, the LaMarcus Aldridge, what do you do with your draft pick? And you can kind of tailor your team to that. So, yeah, I was with you. I wanted to see them beat the Sixers. I think they should have beaten the Sixers. But at the end of it, it's like, I mean, they're going to play the Rockets tomorrow, and we've already heard that James Harden is out, and I think Eric Gordon are out. Yeah, so, I mean, they're getting gift wrapped a couple of, lighter rosters. It is going to be interesting to see that Spurs-Rockets game where they're both going small now. These are going to be 2 small ball teams. You're going to see Jakob Poeltl matched up against P.J. Tucker. So the matchup we've all been waiting for in the bubble. But that's kind of what this thing's about. And I think that this entire bubble experience has been about, like, what is this team moving forward? You and I have criticized this team for not having an identity. And I think that they have a little bit of an identity now that they're finding and discovering. We'll be interested to see if they commit to that here in this shortened off season.
Yeah, and let's quickly go through these wins. I mean, there's less to say about a good win than there is a bad loss. But the Jazz game, great. Also, the Jazz were missing probably their 2 best players. I think
they were missing their whole starters except Joe Ingles.
Yeah. Who, hey man, don't sleep on Joe Ingles. He's a
killer
baller.
Yeah.
But the Spurs win, and that's all that really matters. It was DeMar DeRozan's birthday on Friday, so happy birthday, DeMar. You got a W. Probably his worst game of the bubble, ironically, but he got the W, so he's probably happy. Another great Derrick White game. I mean, I don't know what else to say about Derrick White other than that I hope he's okay.
Yeah, and he's the guy. I mean, I think we mentioned this the last time that we talked, like, Derrick White has to be a part of your future. Derrick White has to be a part of this team's future moving forward. I saw this. I'm not going to do my Twitter rant today, but I saw this shenanigans today on Twitter where the New York Knicks fan base is talking about trading whatever their pick is going to be for Derrick White. And I thought how hilarious that would be, that the Knicks think that they would be able to get the Spurs' best young core after they were totally involved with the Marcus Morris shenanigans from earlier, which of this year, where he basically went back on his word and ended up signing with the Knicks. Just a little comical. But the point is, you're right. Derrick White he's been phenomenal, and he's getting some real recognition around the league too.
Yeah. Jakob had a great game too. I mean, it would have been more impressive if he had put up that stat line going against Rudy Gay for 48 minutes, but he's had some up and downs. I like the highs for Jakob are very good. The lows are, the end of the Sixers game.
But what are we seeing from Jakob? What gets him into? He gets into foul trouble. Like that's the thing. So he's not necessarily like playing bad per se. He has the big drop against the Sixers where DeMar fed it to him. DeMar shouldn't have passed him that ball.
No.
But Jakob really kind of fumbled it. He didn't get a clean look at it. But other than that, he's been in foul trouble, which is something he's going to have to be better at, especially if they intend to stay small and he's going to be their big.
Yeah.
But he's done pretty well. He's in the right spots. He's got pretty good hands around the basket. Lonnie's found him a few times that I think has been good. But that's really what we got to see from Jakob.
Yeah.
Can't pick up those cheap fouls early.
I think he moves really well without the ball, which is another thing like I would like to say about Lonnie Walker too, is he's moving quite well without the ball. So even when he's not putting up a lot of numbers, he's at least kind of doing well spacing. But one thing about Jakob is the fouls are a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
They're not necessarily 100% his problem. I mean, DeJounte Murray fouled him out very badly. I don't remember if that was a scrimmage game or the first game that counted, but
I remember that.
That was Memphis, right? He just totally,
baited him.
So it's just a real bummer that he's really the only big man on this. Like, who they go to
Eubanks.
Sorry, who has looked actually great in his short burst of time too. Zeller is looking like what do we waste a pickup on that guy for? We had we had the all-star backup sitting on the bench in Austin the whole time.
Yikes. Yeah. But Eubanks really has been a nice piece to observe too. G League has done really good numbers for him. I actually thought Eubanks did really well against Zion the other day, which, Zion came in, was a little hefty, we'll put it that way. But Eubanks was banging with him. And I was kind of impressed with Drew. I'm not a huge Drew guy. I think he is what he is. He's a G League center who's been a two-way player and now might get a guaranteed contract. We'll see. But he's been very serviceable, especially in Jakob's sneaky absence.
Yeah. And speaking of Pelicans, snuck by that one. That's what got them to 4-2.
Mm-hmm.
The big takeaway from that game is, to me, less about how any of the Spurs did. I mean, other than MVP DeRozan having another great game, another great closeout for the Spurs.
It's crazy to see him do so much damage in the fourth and really be a facilitator quarters 1 through 3.
Is this something? Okay, I didn't watch many Toronto Raptors games my entire life. So certainly, my experience of watching DeMar DeRozan is extremely limited before he came over to the Spurs. But I'm starting to wonder if this is is this just kind of a side effect, if you will, of the situation of them being in this weird play-in situation where it's really more about getting time and experience with the young guys? Or do you think if the Spurs had come at this season with DeMar DeRozan and the understanding that I really need you to play facilitator and then try to take over games or not, I don't think he's I don't think the goal is let's keep it close for 3 quarters and you come out at the end and you just, steal all the glory. But I feel like he's been playing much better in spurts than he did when he was trying to be the guy for 4 quarters.
Right. I think a lot of this has to just do with I've said this numerous times, but it has to do with their roster assembly and the very simple fact that DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge, both fine players, they don't play well together. Their games don't match well on the court. And so the Spurs, despite what all of our fan base has been clamoring for and what the league has been doing, they've been kind of stuck. You've got LaMarcus Aldridge, who you're paying $24 million a year to bounce basketball. You can't put that guy on the bench. And if he doesn't have a trade market, you got to play him. And so I feel like they've kind of had their hand forced a little bit to play both of those guys. And in the bubble, you have been able to get LaMarcus out just for the simple fact of an injury, and it's allowed DeMar DeRozan to move into more of a natural fit for him. In Toronto, he didn't control the ball as much. It was Kyle Lowry that was there, and he, DeMar was much more on the wing. He was a much more guy that was like, he's going to attack. He's going to be like a slasher. And what you've seen now is kind of the next evolution of his game, where he's kind of got this, he's got a real strong mid-range, but he's also a facilitator, which I don't think we saw that much of him in Toronto. And so it gives you an opportunity for the first 3 quarters where he can really be that same wing guy who's slashing, he's getting to the basket, he's getting a couple spot-up shots here and there, but he can rely on other guys. And then when the game slows down, as they always do in fourth quarters, he's a guy who can close for you. But you don't have that same luxury when LaMarcus Aldridge is on the court. So I've really loved this next evolution of DeMar's game. I also think it's going to save some miles on his knees and on his legs and everything, because he's got these younger guys that he doesn't have to go in there and bang with his back to the basket in a mid-range whenever he can get out in the court and run a little bit more with the younger bucks.
Yeah.
So,
say Aldridge and DeRozan are both in San Antonio again next year.
Yeah.
Can you somewhat replicate what they're doing right now by playing LaMarcus, DeRozan, White, Murray, and Lonnie Walker as the starting 5? I don't think so. I think it kind of requires Jakob.
Yeah, it does, because Jakob doesn't need the ball, and Jakob does like 3 things well. He can switch and stay in front of a smaller defender better than LaMarcus can. Jakob also contests shots more at the rim than LaMarcus does. And the other thing that he does is he just has better, like he's more of a guy that's just going to roam around in a pick and roll, and he's going to finish more at the rim. But where LaMarcus he wants to play with his back to the basket. He wants a set for him. He wants a down screen where he comes around and he gets a one-on-one matchup. So I don't think that this same style of play will fit with LaMarcus Aldridge. I think it's got to be a Clint Capella type. Like those are the types of guys. And to be honest with you, I'd actually love to see a situation where maybe LaMarcus could get moved over to Atlanta and they would get like a guy like Clint Capella if they can't hang on to Jakob. But that's the kind of guy you need, somebody that doesn't need the ball that much. Even a Serge Ibaka type, who has some ability, but you're not calling their number, for a third of the game.
Right. And obviously the biggest story coming out of this Pelicans game is that Derrick White left the game early with a knee injury, playing really well. It's being listed as a contusion. He's questionable for the Rockets right now.
Thank goodness. Yeah.
We'll talk more about that Rockets game in a minute, but first we have a word from our unofficial sponsor.
That's right, Trace. We talk enough about everybody eating Whataburger, and Whataburger's a good thing, and I encourage everybody to eat Whataburger. And if you're near a Whataburger, eat one for the rest of us. But if you're like Trace and I, and you're not anywhere near a Whataburger, but you still need to get their fix, go to their fan store, and you can get some good Whataburger swag. Recently, I went and got a brand new Whataburger coffee mug. My old one, I had actually cracked it. I got a nice fancy ketchup Whataburger mouse pad. And my favorite thing here is a new bright orange Whataburger snapback. And I'm loving this thing. It's right. I'm just telling you, for those of you who are missing out on your actual Whataburger snacking, you can go and get at least some good swag. Carry that around, especially out here on the West Coast. All these In-N-Out lovers, show them what the real hamburger is all about right here at Whataburger.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I can't wait for my next Whataburger.
Me too.
I also can't wait to see the Spurs-Rockets game going on.
I'm really excited about it. Isn't it? No, it's on Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Yes, today
California
is Monday.
time.
I'm an idiot. I don't know what time it is anymore. Yes,
Okay.
Great midday basketball. Hopefully I'll be able to sneak that in between some meetings here.
Mm-hmm.
One of the wonderful perks of working from home all the time.
Yes.
But that's enough of that. Anyway, Harden is not going to play tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Gordon is not going to play tomorrow. Russell Westbrook will play tomorrow. So they have, one of the Do they call them the big three? I don't think it's going to be the Austin Rivers and Russell Westbrook show.
I'm honestly looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm curious. Who do you think? What body do you think is going to be put on Russell Westbrook for most of this game?
Hey, man.
And I'm going to assume that Derrick White's not going to be playing right now.
Yeah, let's assume that he's not. So who do you feel most comfortable putting on Russell Westbrook? DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker, or Keldon Johnson?
I want to put Keldon Johnson on.
Me too. With all my heart, I want to see – I think, let's say Derrick White's out. We put Keldon in there. He's probably going to start at the 3. Would love to see Keldon draw the Russell Westbrook matchup. And Russ is going to go at him. There's no James Harden. Russ might put up 50 shots tomorrow. Like, if we're lucky, like, this guy's just going to be – he's going to be throwing them up from all over the court. I'm really looking forward to it. And I would just like to see DeJounte eat Austin Rivers alive. I think that would be wonderful. But this is also going to be a good test because the Spurs have played a lot of bigger teams, and then they played a lot of, like, mismatched teams where who maybe, like I think back to, like, the Grizzlies and even the Kings a little bit, like, the way that they had scouted those teams earlier in the season was a very different look for what the Spurs team is. So the Spurs are actually playing small right now, and I really wonder how that's going to go against another team like the Rockets, who are like, we're small. We are 100% small all the time, day, night, everything. Which, let's not forget ourselves, like, the Rockets are stupid. They're a stupid team and a stupid organization, and I'm not crazy about their fans either. But they have made a commitment to go, like, all the way in this direction, and I think the Spurs still have a little bit of uniqueness where they can play both sides. So I'll be interested to see if the Spurs can hang with them in a small ball lineup. But even still, too, if they need to go a little bit bigger, how they can do that. I mean, there's a lineup, too, that can work there with Jakob, Rudy Gay at the 4 and the 5 spot. That could potentially give the Rockets some problems. Of course, we say that about all the teams that the Rockets play, and yet they're still winning a few games here. So it's going to be a fun game to have right after your second cup of coffee in the morning, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think the matchup that I am most interested in this game is Jakob Poeltl versus everybody on the Rockets trying, like, anyone, whether they're shooting a 3 or driving, which is, I guess, all the Rockets do. So that's really all there is to it. I don't know. I mean, do you think that the Spurs opt to go smaller with, like, no Jakob in the starting 5 just to get out on the same page? Or
I think that they'll probably start Jakob, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of Rudy Gay at the 5 tomorrow. I think Rudy Gay has said, like, if the team wants me to play the 5, like, I'll play the 5. And there's few lineups where it works, and I actually think this is one of the few lineups where it'll work. What I'm going to be most excited to see, though, is how, like, they switch. And this will be a good test of Jakob to see if he can switch. It'll honestly be a good test of Rudy Gay to see if he can switch. Because if I were the Rockets, I'd be putting Rudy Gay or Jakob Poeltl in all the screen and rolls that I could possibly handle, and just see how they move their feet and if it works. So it's going to be a good show, and but I'm really looking forward to some of those perimeter switches that we see from kind of the 3 younger guys who do end up playing, assuming Derrick White doesn't play. But I'd really like to see, like, how DeJounte and Keldon and Lonnie all handle switches, and who gets exploited versus who doesn't. Hopefully we don't get too much Marco Bellinelli. That'd be
please no. It's also I think tomorrow is, I think Dan told me before the show that it's Patty Mills' birthday. So
well, happy birthday, Patty.
I wouldn't be opposed to some Patty Mills versus the Rockets action on his birthday.
Yeah, he can get some of that. That's good for him.
But on offense, what I really want to see actually is Lonnie Walker had one of his only great games against
the
Rockets earlier this year. I want to see if he can keep that going. I think the tempo of the game is really going to feed into the game of Lonnie Walker. Like, he can, if the game is just running back and forth across the court as fast as you can, like, that's where Lonnie Walker is going to.
He might thrive.
Yeah. I hate to say it, Lonnie Walker as a Houston Rocket would probably, that was probably the perfect team for him to go to. But
I also think, too, like, if Derrick White's not playing tomorrow, they're going to need Lonnie Walker to be that version of Lonnie Walker. And the thing that's made Derrick White so beneficial to this team is what did Greg Popovich say? He wants him to shoot like 10 a game, like 10 threes a game.
Shoot at
That's
least
absurd.
10. Yeah.
So I hope Lonnie shoots 10. I'd like to see him start looking for his shot a little bit more rather than sliding to the corner and waiting for a kick to him. So that'll be – I think you got a good read on this, Trace. I think Lonnie Walker might be the guy to watch tomorrow. This might be the Lonnie Walker game, and if not for no other reason, I'd like to see how well he bounces back since his what was it, absurd 29-point explosion against the Rockets in overtime a while back. That was the one where the stupid Rockets, they tried to dunk the ball and it went back out, and they said that the best was whatever. Oh man.
I'm curious, in the first few games, we saw way more Quindary Witherspoon than I thought we were going to, which was exciting. He barely saw the floor against the Pelicans because Marco Bellinelli ended up with playing like 21 minutes or something like that.
Sure.
He had 14 points, so I guess I won't totally hate on it, but he shot abysmally from the field. He just got to the free throw line a bunch of times. I think this is the kind of game where you get Quindary in there instead of Marco Bellinelli because I don't know that Marco Bellinelli can run.
No, he's not interested in playing defense at all, nor is he skilled at it. But Quindary's actually been a nice little find. I mean, you talk about a guy they snagged in the second round, I think, from Mississippi State. And when he's been out here on the court, like he definitely looks – he's made a few bad decisions, but, hey, this is his actual first look at some real NBA minutes. That's to be expected. We want that to happen in Orlando. But what he has shown is he's got some good size to him. He's got some good quickness to him. And for no other reason, on the defensive end alone, you're going to get more out of him than you're going to get out of guys like Marco Bellinelli, Bryn Forbes, even Patty Mills. So I think he's a absolutely necessary rotation piece. Again, especially if Derrick White is out tomorrow, we should get a good amount of Quindary Witherspoon.
Yeah, and if he does get in, I think he needs to take the torch from Derrick White on just drawing charges. I mean, if he could just get in the game and draw 5 charges, then
that's easy.
Doesn't matter what else he does.
I try and do that at the YMCA in the pickup games. Like, I'm just here to draw charges, guys.
How's that been working out?
Not so hot at all. Yeah. We're not going to the Y right now anyway.
So we got one more game after the Jazz. After the Houston, and that is the Jazz again. That's what I meant to say. I don't know. I don't know what their health situation is going to be like. I believe Rudy's okay now.
Yeah, I think the Jazz are just terrified of playing the Rockets. I think all they're interested in doing it. They've been murked by the Rockets the last couple of years in the playoffs. So the Jazz are like the one team that's like, no, we actually have somebody we don't want to play. So you'll be able to understand what type of lineup the Spurs are going to get from the Jazz based off of the seeding for the Rockets and the Jazz in that last final game. I think the Jazz are literally trying to do whatever they can to avoid the Rockets. But I think the Spurs are going to need that. If the Spurs are really trying to get this 9th seed, they're going to have to sneak one against the Rockets, which, hey, this is as good a time as any without James Harden and Eric Gordon. And then it's really going to be if they can get that one, then I mean, the door's wide open for them to get in against the Jazz. We pretty much kissed that lottery pick goodbye. But, hey, such is life.
Yeah, so the Jazz right now are lined up. If the season ended today, they would be playing Denver. San Antonio, of course, has to win out. And they also, not only do they need to win out, but they need Phoenix and Portland to lose at least one of their last games. So, gosh.
And those two teams are hot right now.
And those two teams are pretty hot right now. I mean, coming into this, I don't know if I said it on the show, but I thought Portland was going to take the 8th seed outright. And it looks like they might do that after all, even though they lost one or two kind of dumb games. But
they're the best team of the teams that are floundering to get in.
Yeah.
They just have not been healthy, and that's why they're in the spot. But
yeah. Portland has no business fighting for an 8th seed. Portland should be like probably jockeying for like 4, 5, 6.
4, 5, 6. Yep, that's right. So I don't want any part of Portland. I would love to get a piece of Memphis or Phoenix if it comes down to that. But, Spurs had a chance to be able to control their own destiny. That all kind of fell apart after that 2-point loss to the Sixers. Now they got to win out and have a little bit of luck, and we'll see what they could do. But I think if I had to pick, man, I'm trying to avoid Portland at all costs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we don't get to choose.
I don't have a choice.
We don't get to choose that so much.
Matter.
We don't have the luxury of being the Utah Jazz and strategically losing games here to avoid anybody. We just have a couple minutes left, but I do want to ask. So I said this earlier. I think my Spurs bubble MVP. I'm going DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah.
Who do you pick?
It's Derrick White.
Yeah,
it's Derrick White. I can't get away from that guy. They've both been great, and it could be either one of them. I mean, I believe that DeMar DeRozan is the closer of this team, but I think that Derrick White is the heart and soul of this team. And I think that I actually think they make a really good combo. And so I really like having the two of them on the court, and I really hope they get to stay together for a while. So yeah, it's been those two guys, but Derrick beats he definitely sets the pace for this team, and he crucial part, so I hope he gets back soon. Dan just asked us in the group chat here if we want the Spurs to win the playoff if they're in it.
Absolutely.
I mean, if they're in, let's win it. Like if they make the playoffs, like I'm waving the flag that says they're going to the finals. I don't care. If they don't make it, then they don't make it. But if they're in, like I'm going to be a Spurs fan in the playoffs. Like,
yeah, of course. I mean, I like going into this, I was probably one of the most pessimistic people I know about this whole thing working, about the quality of basketball that we were going to see, especially from San Antonio. Like I was not expecting anything good out of San Antonio until I found out. Well, I was not expecting anything interesting out of San Antonio until I found out LaMarcus Aldridge was not.
Yeah, and then playing. We all got excited.
I became very interested in seeing what. And I'm not anti-LaMarcus. I mean, I agree with everything you said about how him and DeMar just are not, they're an odd couple. But I still have respect for the guy. But knowing that he wasn't going to be in the bubble made me very, very interested in seeing what the Spurs were going to be.
Yeah, they're forced to play.
Now I want more. Shoot
me
in
too.
My veins, man. Give me all the Lonnie Walker and Derrick White.
Oh, it's been great.
Dejounte Murray, you can give me.
No, it's the first time we've really been excited to watch this team play. So it makes sense. I'm looking forward to it, man. The next time we talk, we're either going to be in a play-in game, or we're going to be talking about next season. So here at Casa De Spurs, don't forget you can follow Trace at Dinna_dog, DAWG, and myself at the Hailstone. We're going to be watching Spurs Rockets tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Central Time. Make sure to check it out. And always remember, go Spurs, go.